Hello and welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Diane, Dayton. Today we're going to talk about wine. We're going to teach you things about wine. So to get started, we have with us first of all is Frances Teslar. You're on the board with the Pennsylvania Wine Society. And as sommelier, we have Cecily Mukhtar. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
What is a sommelier?
A sommelier is actually a wine expert. Basically, you have to go through a certain amount of education, testing processes. There are different groups that you can work with to become a sommelier, either through an educational process or as a journeyman with another sommelier.
Okay, and then the Pennsylvania Wine Society, tell me about that, Frances.
It's a group of members who are very interested in wines. Our members range from new samplers of wine to very sophisticated enthusiasts. I consider myself a wine enthusiast, and we as a society try to provide events that teach you more about the things that you're interested in drinking.
And it's usually a monthly event, correct?
It's a monthly event, and we have speakers from all over the world that come to take us through the journey of learning about different types of wines.
And that's where I remember meeting Cecily for Women of Wine. It was a wonderful event that you had put together. Let's talk about understanding wine, first of all, Frances.
Well, in understanding how wine is made, obviously, you know, grapes are grown in vineyards, but these grapes are very different than the ones you buy in the grocery store to eat. They have tougher skins. They're not necessarily sweet. These are harvested, then they're crushed in very large containers called vats. Sometimes the skins are separated from the inside of the grape. If it is, it becomes white wine. But normally they're crushed together for a certain period of time, and then a yeast is introduced. Fermentation begins, and throughout the fermentation period, wine experts, oenologists, chemists, scientists check it, tweak it a little bit if necessary, and make sure that the wine that goes into a barrel to be aged or goes from the stainless steel into a bottle is appropriate for drinking and enjoying by consumers.
Okay, that sounds good. Now what we need to figure out is how to drink it too, right?
That's right.
And how to really understand. Isn't this beautiful? What a wonderful glass of wine.
Many people think it's a little snobby to buy crystal to drink wine, and it really isn't. It allows the flavors of the wine to come through. It is not snobbish, but very appropriate to swirl your glass. And I'm not very good at this, like this, but on a tabletop you can use it and it swirls beautifully. Mm-hmm. That opens up the nose or the aroma, how the wine smells. And it's appropriate to really enjoy that and try to identify certain scents or aromas that you're familiar with, and that can really be part of the wine, part of the flavoring, part of the taste, and part of the enjoyment. After that, you want to sniff and then swirl. You want to sip, and you need not take huge gulps. A sip and just suck in some air over your tongue as you're sipping it to kind of aerate that wine. And then you can either spit or swallow. And if you're at a wine festival, at a winery, it's perfectly acceptable to spit out that wine and cleanse your palate with some water and then go on to tasting other ones. You can always go back to drinking and swallowing the wine that you enjoy the most.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. And why do certain wines taste the way they do? I know soil, different regions, there are a lot of things to know.
Exactly. So much of it is where the grapes are grown, the type of soil it's grown on. For example, a lot of us are drinking New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs right now. It's a very popular wine. Well, New Zealand has a very slaty soil that those wines are grown in, so you get a lot of that minerality in the wine that you're drinking. If the wine, for example, in the Bordeaux region in France, is grown on the coast. So you get more of that salt water, that influence in the wine as well. So really, depending on where the wine is grown can really impact the actual flavors of the wine as well as the types of grapes that grow best there.
What happens on our palate when we taste the wine?
As you know, in the front of your tongue you taste sweet. On the sides of your tongue you taste what wine people call astringency, but what most of us call tanginess. And then on the very back of your tongue you taste bitterness. But actually, it goes quite beyond that. And most of our taste is really in our nose. Anyone who's tried to take a sip of something and hold their nose knows they can't actually taste anything.
So true.
So what happens when we drink wine or when we chew food is we're actually sort of emulsifying it and allowing those aromas to release up into our facial cavities and particularly into our nose so we can really taste it better. So the nose knows.
The nose does know. And it really is a whole complete experience when you're talking about looking at it, and we're talking about the color as well, and allowing it to breathe, and then, of course, taking in the aroma and tasting it at the same
And you
time.
know, that's why we clink glasses, is because the one thing that we don't actually incorporate when we taste a wine is our hearing. So we clink the glasses so that we've incorporated all 5 of our senses when we have the wine experience.
Wow. And we were just talking last night, we had some wine with dinner, and we were talking about toasting. When you toast, to look each other in the eye with the toast as well, and it really brings it all together. Sometimes it's confusing trying to figure out what wines to have with what foods. How do we go about looking at that?
Well, generally you want to do either a complement or a contrast. So you either want the wine to have characteristics that you also have in your food, such as maybe a butteriness or a creamy texture or a particular sweetness or a particular sort of fruit flavor. Sometimes you want it to be completely contrasting. So if you have something that's very rich, you might want to have a wine that's a little more tangy or astringent, so it cuts through some of that richness. So it just really depends.
Okay.
This season, it being summer, I really like to focus on what wines go well with summer foods. So we're grilling out a lot. I say Chardonnay with shellfish. If you're doing shrimp kebabs, if you're doing steamed crabs, if you're doing lobster, you want that buttery, oaky texture of a Chardonnay to match with that buttery texture of the shellfish that you're eating. For barbecued ribs, go with the Spanish garnacha. It's sweet, it's spicy, it's tangy, it goes great with that barbecue sauce. And if you're grilling steaks, I say Syrah. And you can either go a Rhone-style French Syrah, which has a smoky, bacony flavor, or you can go with, sort of the California or the Australian Shiraz, which has a much more full-bodied, fruit-forward, bold flavor. So.
Well, and I know, Frances, you were a big fan of rosé.
I am.
Tell us a little bit more about rosé.
Well, in the past, people thought rosés were kind of a combined white and red, that wineries just had wine left over and wanted to combine them. But really, rosé is a finely developed wine, mainly from only having the skins on the crush, so to speak, for a certain period of time. Many European vineyard owners really prefer the rosés from their own vineyard. It's the fresh new wine that's come out from all their hard work. And rosés can come from Italy, France, Spain, the United States, some from South America, Australia, and they're very, very delicious, especially in the summer with grilled food, with salads. They go with almost anything.
Okay. Now, if someone was interested in a career such as yours, how do we go about doing that?
Well, I actually studied with the International Sommelier Guild. It's an actually accredited program through the National Education Association. I studied with sommeliers from throughout the world. We have schools set up everywhere, even in China. But there are other avenues you can go through too, such as the Wine and Spirit Education Trust. That actually has a school in Philadelphia, so has a local angle. Or you can do something called the Court of Masters. The Court of Masters is more of an independent study where you work with you may probably work in a restaurant situation with a master sommelier, and then you're sort of sponsored to take these series of exams. Regardless of which program you enter, you will have to take a series of exams to prove your overall knowledge of wines, of service, of food and wine pairings, of proper glassware, of all kinds of things, anything that has anything to do with wine, as well as beers, spirits, teas, coffees, and cigars.
Wow. Wow. If you want to enjoy wine as a hobby, we're going to put the website up for the Pennsylvania Wine Society. That's one way. I know I've attended various events.
It is one way. Philadelphia has a lovely wine society, and so does Washington, D.C. Another way is to do some research on your own. And one of the fun things about drinking wine is learning about it. And it's endless. You can never run out of things to learn. And if you want to get started and you have a favorite wine, Get a book such as the Wine Bible.
Okay.
Or another book such as Mixology that's there on the table. The Wine Bible tells you about the area in which the grape is grown, how the wine is made, why it tastes the way it does, and it's a great research book as well as a learning tool. There are many other wine books available. Some focus on the country the wine is made, some focus on the scientific process. It's really what intrigues you.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking time and sharing some of your experience and your understanding. We're going to take a brief pause, and when we come back, we're going to find out about a fabulous winery in our area. Stay with us. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. We're talking about wine today. And now joining us, we have Kim Waltz of Waltz Winery here in Mannheim. And also joining us is Mark Chein. You're a viticulture extension educator with Penn State.
Yes.
And thanks for being here. Let's talk a little bit about your winery. It's fabulous. How did this whole thing start for you and your husband, Jan?
Well, thank you, Diane. My husband and I, we went to California on a trip to enjoy a friend's wedding, and while we were there, decided to just taste a little wine, like anybody else would do when they're close to Napa and Sonoma. But something different happened when we started up that trail. My husband, being from Lancaster County, and over 6 generations live on his family farm there in Mannheim, he was very passionate about farming. And then he went to Penn State and studied agriculture. And so when we took this trip and started up that trail, the wheels started to turn in his mind, and I could see a little bit of fire in his eyes, and he would pull the car over and kick the dirt around, and he'd say, "This is amazing. This is like corn in Lancaster County." And he couldn't let it go. He started to read a book, he started to do research and go to some grape grower meetings, and really decided that he was going to try this here. And so he sampled his soils, and he picked some varieties, and he began to grow. And they did very, very well. And he also is very meticulous in managing the vineyard. So what happens is the grapes were turning out very high quality. And then with Mark's help, he brought in some scientists from all over the world, and we found out we're actually sitting on world-class vineyard soils.
Wow.
And this we did not know at all when we began, so it was very exciting for us. So we continued to plant, and the wineries learned about the quality of fruit we were growing, and they would contact us to buy our fruit. And soon we were selling to 10 wineries in Pennsylvania, and also making our own in a little garage on our property. And that was the most exciting part for us too, that to see that this beautiful fruit we brought in could actually be made into even a better product that we could enjoy with dinner. Yeah. So we started in 2000 making the wines, and now the way we make wine is very, very different from what it was then. Mark and I were just giggling about the way we were making it then, because we had no temperature control, we had no sophistication, but still the wine quality was coming out decent enough that we knew once we fine-tuned it, it would be very, very good. So in 2008, we built a new building on our property, expanded that garage a little, and we brought in all our equipment from Italy. It's all high-tech, state-of-the-art, temperature-controlled fermenting tanks. We also use a rotary fermenter. And then when we go to age our wine, we put it into French oak.
Okay.
And that's sourced from 3 superior coopers in France.
Wow. What is it about the soil there, world-class soil? What does that really mean? Mark, can you address that?
Yes, well, I didn't realize this because when I came from Oregon in 1999, I heard only that Lancaster County was a very productive agricultural area, and grapes tend to do best in poor soils, like in France and Burgundy and on the Mosel River in Germany. But with further examination with some of these experts that Kim mentioned, we were able to determine that there are some places in Lancaster County with a particular soil type that are exceptional for grapes. They're very, very well drained, and that's what grapes like. And so Jan and Kim's farm is on an eroded hilltop in Mannheim, and much to my surprise, it started turning out great wines. And there are special places like this all over Pennsylvania. In fact, we have a very diverse region, colder to the north that can make great aromatic white wines, warmer to the south where we are here that can make lovely red wines. So there's tremendous diversity of grapes and wines grown across Pennsylvania, from the traditional native and hybrid varieties like Concord and Niagara, and Baco Noir and Marichal Foch that people are very familiar with, to now the Waltzes are specializing in the classic European varieties like Chardonnay and Merlot. So we have a great diversity here, a great opportunity of soil and climate to make fine wines.
Well, speaking of those fine wines, and they are fine wines, Kim, tell us what you brought along. Here are starting on
Sure.
the end.
Sure. The first one is Fusion. That is our semi-dry white wine, and that is made from 3 different grapes that we grow. It's made with Semillon, Sauvignon Blanc, and Chardonnay. And so it's a very aromatic, very crisp wine. It has about 1% residual sugar, so that just qualifies it as a semi-dry, not real heavy and sweet. And chefs love this wine because it's so easy to pair with many different types of foods.
Okay.
It also won gold medal in the Finger Lakes International Competition. So I just
fabulous.
throw that in.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Merlot, the Cherry Tree Merlot is actually a combination of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, and it's spent over a year in the French oak. So it's nice and oaky and smoky. It has a lot of great dark fruit characters, and it's a wonderfully drinking red wine. And all of our wines are really made to pair with food, so it makes a great dinner wine as well. Then we have our Reserve Chardonnay. Now that one was just released, and that was made in the Sur-Lie method, and it's a fabulously creamy Chardonnay that is just aging nicely, and it's spent about 10 months in the French oak.
Okay.
Then we have our Crow Woods Cabernet, 100% Cabernet Sauvignon grown on our property, and it has been at least 15 months in the French oak. So it's very elegant, it's very nice, and that wine is almost gone this time, but yes, but we hope to have another one out in 2012.
That sounds great.
So, yes.
Mark, we were talking a little earlier about the wineries and the vineyards that we have in Pennsylvania. How many wineries do we have?
Right now we have about 150 wineries, so it's grown considerably. When I arrived here in 1999, there were 42 wineries. So in a little over a decade, it's almost grown fourfold. And we have independent vineyards like the Waltzes, who started as an independent vineyard, then decided to have a winery. We have a concentration of wineries in what I call the southeast quadrant of Pennsylvania, below the Appalachians where it's warmer. Then also wineries up along the Erie shore. But we really have wineries in all over the state. So if you were to go to our Winery Association website and look for wineries near wherever you live, chances are you'll be able to find a winery somewhere not too far from where you are.
That's great. And we can go to your website too to find out more about your winery.
You can. It is www.waltzvineyards.com.
Okay.
And we are open for tastings and tours 6 days a week this summer. So we're excited. We have some lawn events coming up with some music on the lawn, and if people are interested, they can contact us to find out more details on that.
That sounds great. If someone was thinking about getting into winemaking, let's say we talked earlier about, the hobby into actually doing this, what advice would you have, Mark?
Well, the Cooperative Extension, we are your tax dollars at work, so we are the part of Penn State that helps people in agriculture and other areas of the community to achieve their goals. And so in the case of the Waltzes, they got interested in viticulture. They contacted me, and so I started providing Jan and Kim with information to start their vineyard, and we now have a state extension enologist, Denise Gardner, who's just arrived about a couple of months ago, and her responsibility is to service the winery. So I serve the vineyards, commercial vineyards, and Denise does the winery. So if you have an interest in doing either of these or both, as the Waltzes are doing, you contact us and we start giving you information and help. In some ways, we're sort of like free consultants.
Okay.
Except your tax dollars is helping to pay for it.
That works, though. That works. One thing I love about going to your winery, too, is it's beautiful. Even the approach going up the hill and the view. And when we get there, it's a beautiful room. You also have some great artwork there, too.
We do.
Right?
We have all local artwork that we feature. Right now we have 2 artists, Claire Giblin, who works with Lancaster Museum of Art and F&M College, and Alistair Peters, who grew up right in Mannheim. And he went to Tyler School of Art, and we have several of his works displayed as well. In fact, one, we actually cut a circle in and made it our label down here for the Fusion.
Very cool.
So, yeah, we like to support local. Our whole building was designed and created by people who are local contractors who had never built a winery before, but they really did a fabulous job.
Yeah.
And it works very well. So
Yeah, it really does.
the tasting room is European styled. We have tobacco lath that we brought in from the farm after we retired from the tobacco industry, and we put the tobacco lath in to just add a little character and also a tribute to our heritage.
And there you can do things with small groups at your location
We
too,
can,
right?
we can. We do some private tastings. We've had a lot of wine clubs out and dinner clubs, and we explain the process of our winemaking, how important the grape growing aspect is in that, because all of our wines are made only from our fruit. Everything is estate grown, and it is very important. Right now we're working very hard in the vineyard to keep everything clean and beautiful so it produces this fabulous wine.
Yeah, and it really does. It's a wonderful experience when you come there.
Thank you.
And just briefly, your hours for this summer, just so we know if we're listening and writing it down.
Yeah, it's Monday to Wednesday, we're 12 to 4. Thursday and Friday, we're 11 to 6. And Saturday, 11 to 5.
Okay, that sounds really, really good. We're going to take a brief pause.
Yes.
When we come back, we're going to get some final thoughts on wines in our area and wines, period. Stay with us. We've been talking about wine today. We've brought Cecily back to join Kim and myself. What would you like us to remember to know?
I really feel when it comes to drinking wine that you have to just keep trying it. Not everyone is going to like their first glass of wine or their first bottle of wine, but our tastes evolve over time. Our tastes have evolved since, you know, we were children, as we become adults, and even as we grow into our adulthood. So just keep trying. If you find a bottle that you're not crazy about, that's okay. Try another. There are all kinds of wonderful wines out there. There are wonderful wine regions all across the world. Just keep tasting and sampling and try it with your food and really expand on your appreciation of wine any opportunity you get.
Yes, that makes sense. What about you, Kim? What should we keep in
Yeah,
mind?
I would just add to that by saying, go out and find what's in your backyard, because there are several local wineries here, and if you don't like the style of the first one, go on to the next one, because there are many here and we all do it a little bit differently, but I think everyone in the end will find something they enjoy.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of fun when you take a couple friends with you. And you just, I know I'll do little tours with friends and we'll try maybe 2 out in a day and just make an excursion out of it
It's
too.
a great girls' day out. It's a great date night experience.
Yeah, it is.
It's really
It
a lot
is.
of fun.
And also the Pennsylvania Wine Society is a great way to get introduced to all this too, and that's how we had met you, Cecily. You did a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just taking a trip out to the winery. You're right off of Mannheim.
Right off of 72.
Yep,
Yep, we're just
yeah.
2.5 miles off of 72.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, and salute, right?
Salud.
Enjoy. Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. We'd like to also say thank you to Flowers by Paulette for our beautiful flowers. I'm Diane Dayton with Behind the Lines, and remember, keep looking behind the lines. You might be surprised what you find.